Depending on what you include in that amount, it's clearly not 350. But the amount of money that the United States has spent or contributed towards helping Ukraine, the overwhelming majority of that money was spent in the United States. It's not pallets of ammunition of money that are loaded onto a C-17 and then delivered into Ukraine. It's money that is spent replacing or buying ammunition, refurbishing old equipment that is then loaned or given to Ukraine.
Yeah, but we could use that money to do something else, or maybe we could refurbish it for our own weapon system, because we have a depletion of our supply going on that is becoming very dangerous. From what I've heard and what I've read, I mean, I used to really keep up with Ukraine a lot back in the day. If you guys want to go back to my catalog, I always say go back to my catalog, but like I used to really, really talk about this a lot, and I was like, oh, we're just like filleting ourselves for Ukraine. So this conversation is kind of, it feels good to hear again, because I kind of took my eyes off of that for a moment. But, these coping mechanisms that these people come up with to say that we should be doing this, I don't care if they did refurbish it here. It's still going somewhere else to do something else. So this is going to be Andrew Wilson annihilating the whole panel. I mean, obviously not Dave Smith, because he is anti-war kind of guy. But let's go ahead and listen.
Of course, there are no U.S. troops in Ukraine except for those.
And that's a lie, okay? So whatever he's going to say, except for they always try to minimize it. But I'll let the guys take over. By the way, sorry. If you guys like these videos, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and a notification bell. Thank you.
Officers that are assigned to the embassy and the Office of Defense Cooperation, whose task is to make sure accountability of every javelin, every artillery round, every set of binoculars. Oh, you can shake your head if you want to. That's a fact. So
why don't you stop pretending that we don't have United States Special Forces on the ground right this second? We don't have CIA agents all over Ukraine right this second. Why don't you just stop pretending? Because it's nonsense. Okay. And we all know it's nonsense. This is the way, hang on. This is the way it's been going for a long time. And when you talk about, well, Andrew, what we're actually doing is we're spending a whole bunch of money on refurbishing equipment here instead of buying new equipment to send over there.
By the way, guys, sorry about that. I just feel like I need to say that. A couple of things had happened behind the scenes. I'm still trying to catch up to everything. So anyway, let's go back to Andrew giving it to this neocon who has his lapel, look at his pin on his lapel. So let's go back to Andrew saying exactly what I want to say to this guy.
So what? So why are you still spending tons of my money on something I don't care about to send over to a nation which is corrupt as hell? So can we just stop BSing each other for a second? Yes, the United States has boots on the ground there. Yes, we have special forces units there. We have CIA agents there, and we would be fools to pretend we don't.
It's an interesting argumentative style that you had, and I always, when people start calling me names or whatever, then I really the credibility.
I didn't call you any names, sir. I didn't call you any names.
Okay.
What was the name that I called you?
I think the key is this idea of trying to end the war.
You're just offended by tone. You just don't like tone. Maybe a little tone policing getting worked in there. Maybe that southern drawl where you try to make yourself sound likable because you have it doesn't work so well on me, because you can't gaslight me with this stuff. It's nonsense. Yes, there's boots on the ground there. Yes, there's been boots on the ground there probably since the beginning. Yes, we're spending $100 billion plus on equipment that we then either send over there. And by the way, there's hidden money going over there too. This is such nonsense. Just stop gaslighting the American people. Stop it. We're not stupid. We've seen this on repeat so many times now. So many times.
And that's the thing. It becomes frustrating. This is how he should be talked to. I'm sorry. All of this, decorum. It's frustrating. It's tired. Nobody gets any answers. They lie all day. They tell you that there's no boots on the ground. I don't care if there's special forces or whatever. There's still Americans on the ground, which actually almost turns this into a hot war with Russia that nobody signed up for. How many people died in this? This is crazy, right? And don't get it twisted for a second. We are simply pulling a little bit out of Ukraine to get our resources back together so we could go back in again later. Okay? Sorry to hit you with the truth. I don't want to say sorry to hit you with the truth, because I appreciate anybody watching. So, you know what I mean? And I respect y'all for watching. So I know that y'all probably are even aware of this already. This is a pause is what this is. And we've done it before. When I start going live again, which will be at the end of this week, We'll talk about that in a calm fashion. I have facts to show you. Like, this is a pause, and it gives me great concern. Okay, but even in the pause, we can't get the truth.
General,
So-
respond.
The idea of ending the war, of course, is exactly what we would like to do, but it needs to be an end that is sustainable. And I think President Zelensky understands that he can't just sign or accept an end to the war where Russia will wait for us to lose interest, because we always do lose interest, and then they pick right back up with a resumption of the conflict after we have left or turned our back. And so I think it's reasonable to expect Ukrainians to want some sort of guarantee, whether that's continued aid, continued equipment, or presence. They haven't. I don't know exactly what that looks like. Obviously, I would prefer to see Ukraine in NATO. We get better the day they join NATO. It's not going to happen anytime soon, especially if the United States is not willing to do it. And the Biden administration also is not willing to do it.
It's not supposed to be done. Like, that's part of the treaty. It's not supposed to be done. So these people are psychopaths. And look at them, they're old. He's heading on his way out. They set you up for World War III and then they leave the world. Wow.
But how do we end it when you're the partner on the other side, negotiating partner on the other side of the table is Vladimir Putin? I mean, there's no reason to have confidence that they will live up to any agreement because there's nothing in their history. And I do appreciate that Andrew likes my North Florida accent.
Well,
Let me bring in Dave. I want to bring in Dave. We've got.
Yeah, I never quite understand this argument that seems to just logically fall apart, that we can't end a war because the war might pick up at some point in the future, and therefore, if we don't have a perfect guarantee that, I mean, what, even if it, I mean, I don't know. I've heard the entire time through this war, including on your show, Piers, that if Putin was successful in Ukraine, then he was going to move on Poland, right? Like, this is what Joe Biden kept saying. This was the official, like, you know, fear mongering of this war. And so if you're telling me that even NATO membership isn't a guarantee, then yes, we never have a perfect guarantee. By the way, you also don't have a guarantee from any government in the history of the world. That doesn't mean.
Which, by the way, if they moved on Poland, that's not my problem still. I'm sorry. I'm just keeping it real. Like, Poland isn't worried about what I'm doing over here. Or none of us. Why is this my concern?
That ending a war isn't still a positive. And I just want to go back to what was, brought up initially. You know, the idea that this was a case of failed deterrence, and that if only we had deterred Vladimir Putin sooner, then we could have avoided this whole thing. I mean, let's just kind of quickly overlook the last 20 years of U.S. foreign policy in Europe. We've expanded NATO all the way to Vladimir Putin's borders. We constantly floated out the idea for years that we would include Ukraine at some point, give them full membership. We said point blank in 2008 at the Bucharest summit that we were bringing Georgia and Ukraine into NATO before Russia ended up going to war with Georgia there. And then we I mean, look, Piers, like we've done this before on the show too, right? But just imagine, if you can, have a little bit of strategic empathy and put yourself in the Russians' shoes. If Russia, let's say the Soviet Union had never collapsed, and the Soviet Union had poured $100 million into a Mexican street protest that overthrew a democratically elected government, and they had been saying for years they were going to bring Mexico into their military alliance, and then when the
Yes, all right, let's let him finish the analogy, but he is killing it.
new government came up, they recognized them immediately and started arming them, as Donald Trump foolishly bragged about the other day with Zelensky in the Oval Office. Piers, do you think Americans would feel that was deterrence? Or do you think we might view that as a provocation? I mean, like, it's just,
Stop
by the
using
way,
logic,
when
Dave.
Donald
Stop
Trump,
using logic, Dave.
well, look, when
Well, let me ask. Well,
Donald
rather
Trump
than me
was-
try and
very quickly,
answer a very logical question, let me get Jake to respond to that.
Okay, before this guy answers, right? Because you could see, you could tell he's pompous, right? You just can. And then he has like the quick, you know what I mean, tacked on American flag. And be clear, somebody be like, you don't even have it. By the way, I used to have it behind me. I used to have like a whole setup behind me, okay? But like, I just feel like, let me just hurry up and throw this flag up here so the people can know. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and see what he has to say.
So the first thing that he said, what is the concern if Russia takes Ukraine? If Russia can't even go 60 kilometers deep and take the city of Pokrovsk, what is the threat to NATO? And it's, yes, absorbing a country of 40 million people, absorbing a country that has $10 trillion of natural resources under the ground. It's the strategic location on the Black Sea. If Russia absorbs Ukraine, they will Russify the people. They will annihilate the Ukrainian identity, turn them into Russians, and then start press ganging them into the military and send them into meat wave attacks against the Baltics, against Poland and the Suwalki Gap. We're trying to prevent Russia from getting stronger. And I don't care about what Russia thinks or feels. Russia is not a great power. Russia has an economy the same size roughly as Spain. Do you think Spain is a great power that the United States should respect?
Exactly, dude. Listen, we are in the business of trying to be a world empire, and we're going broke. We're $36 trillion in debt because we can't afford to do it. We've blown $8 trillion in the last 20 years on foreign wars.
Why is Donald Trump talking about invading Greenland? Why is Donald Trump talking about invading Panama?
I don't agree with that.
Why is Donald Trump talking about annexing Canada? Why is he talking about ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip? That is empire.
That has nothing to do with this conversation. And by the way, let's just say two things that he said. Number one, Dave Smith is right. He's like, oh, you know, Putin will go in, he'll Russify the people and then force them to go into the Baltics. Yeah, the same way how we went in and de-Russified the people and forced them to go after Russia. And how many, like, what is it? How many freaking Ukrainians have been slaughtered in this meat grinder? 1 million? You know what I mean? Okay, you know, I don't know if it's a full million yet, but what, 700,000 maybe? That's pretty much 1 million. And for what? And do you see how they conscript them? They come up with the van like, yo, I would not even step outside my house. Like, this is and they pick them up and put them in the van. Then to say that they'll Russify them, they're not going to be able to be Ukrainian. First of all, that's not true. Putin already said that's not what he's trying to do. He's like, but they are us. Like, how many? There are Ukrainians who, like, we do speak Russian. Like, I know Ukrainians who've said, actually, like, we are the same people. These people get rich off of this, and that's just simply a fact.
Red herring is a red herring. Stay on
pushing
topic,
for America to be a global empire.
That's a total red herring. Total red herring. Total red herring.
And by the way, I don't support.
Go
Is the guy who smokes and spends all day arguing with strippers and OnlyFans girls going to speak up? I don't know.
They make better arguments than you do,
General
bro.
Ben Hodges,
it's not my fault that you have a lower IQ than a stripper
You're
and an OnlyFans
You're
girl.
an expert. These other guys, I can't take them serious.
And who are you? I don't know who you with the whiny voice. And this is what I mean. You know who these other guys are? They're American citizens who have a complaint. And I am tired of being told that you're not an expert enough to talk about XYZ. I mean, you know, I'm a whole registered nurse who was told that during COVID, okay? That's enough. The American people are speaking, and you shut up and listen, okay? We don't always need a badge to say that we're tired. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.